League of Legends should be dead by now. You know, people say that about Overwatch. Actually, before we watch this chat, did y'all see this yesterday? And then all the quote retweets to this one of what the f happened to Apex, and it's showing it less viewers than Among Us. Dude, it's not us for once. Let's go. And then I saw some weird takes in here. Like this one from Noko, which I know Noko. Noko's cool, but I don't know about this one. Since 99.9% of content creators bitch the entire time, and the viewers drop, everyone's like, what the f happened, man? As an Overwatch streamer, and this literally happened to us, that is not how that works. It's not how that works in any way, shape, or form. People bitching about the game is a reaction to things being bad, not a thing that causes it to happen. It's an effect, not a cause, you know? They don't really get a lot of content. When we watched that like best games of 2023, and you just saw people like, you know, Apex Legends was on, I was like, I'm surprised Apex is on here. Like, Apex is good, but they don't get a ton of content. They just get like new heroes. Except that Halloween game mode. That was gas. But anyways, though, very interesting watching them. They're having their Overwatch moment over there. They're having their 2019 Overwatch, 2020 Overwatch, and it's kind of funny. I don't know anything about League, so I'm probably going to learn something here. I don't know about that. It totally is, though. It had like, so if you think like 2018 Overwatch, like, you know, XQC still streaming, the category appears to be healthy, you know, and then you just like their biggest streamer, which, I mean, you could argue it's Hal, you could argue it's Nick Merckx, depending on who you're talking about, and then Nick Merckx goes to kick, Hal kind of like takes some time off, and then the whole category collapses, and it's like, everyone's like, what the f is going on? The game is a little dry. Like, Apex is a little dry, and most of their community agrees with that, because they look at other games and say like, oh, we don't have that, like, look at all these games getting all this content, although it's a little bit not totally true. Fortnite is a good example of like what's actually getting content. Some people are like, well, Overwatch gets a lot of content. It's like, I don't really call PvPvE content. It's not as good as you think it is. It's funny to watch them react similarly to we used to. That's all I mean.
Why is League of Legends so dominant? This Titan came out almost 15 years ago, and it still has more viewers and players globally than almost any other. But what's odd is that League's creators weren't developers, and the game they made in the beginning was far worse than their competitors. But Riot knew something everyone else didn't, and it started when they found themselves playing Warcraft.
Gifties, I appreciate it. Also, Nixie, thank you for the tier 3 for 6 months.
One of the most beloved games of all time, creating a real-time strategy experience to rival greats like StarCraft and Age of Empires.
Thanks so much, guys.
But Mark Merrill and Brandon Beck weren't booting up Warcraft to play an RTS. They were playing a fan-made mod that changed one of the maps from an RTS game mode into something fresh. A team-based top-down game with just one character in a build.
Can I say something interesting about that? Is something fresh? I've been thinking about that a lot recently, and I think that's why a lot of people's games feel really boring or stale, because about every year you need to have a major shift in the way your game plays. Because if you don't, it will just get tired of it, especially if it's been out for like 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
The goal of the mode was to destroy the other team's ancients, hence the mod being named Dota. Now, Dota wasn't the first MOBA ever created, but this is where the genre's identity was really formed. You had lanes, towers, waves, and minions, leveling a champion, farming for gold, and so much more. It's baffling how many of the MOBA staples came from Dota. The game just kept evolving. Different versions and mods of Dota came out, and the community settled on a final version, Dota All-Stars. But just like all other games that began as mods, it was extremely inaccessible. First, you had to buy Warcraft 3 for $60. Then you had to navigate the custom browser to play Dota All-Stars. And because the game mode was exclusively multiplayer, the only way to set up games was through an online forum or searching servers for a full lobby. And after all that work trying to find a game, the load times were beyond hellish. But even with all these issues, players loved Dota, and two college roommates knee-deep in the game set out to unshackle the game from Warcraft 3. Merrill and Beck would take this inaccessible yet popular game and release it as something new. But there was a problem. The two friends weren't game designers. They were both business majors from USC. They had passion for games.
And we were early members of lots of online game communities, whether it was Dragon Realms in Brandon's case, or Ultima Online, EverQuest in my case.
But no experience making
Maybe a bit of a hot take, But everyone starts somewhere. And I feel like if you're super, super passionate about something, even if you don't have like game dev experience, like, especially if you're someone who's personal, you have the resources to do it and you have the time to do it and the drive to do it, like, you can surround yourself with people that know how to do the actual building, right? Like, every company has different departments and things that they need. And like, even when you're starting out, like, yeah, maybe they didn't know how to do coding themselves, but they had a vision. They knew how to build a team. Maybe they like knew what they wanted, and I'm sure that probably helped.
So they began hiring talent to help them bring their vision to life.
It happens a lot in esports and stuff, or
the new
video games. Like, people always say, like, "Well, you think you could do better than a dev?" It's like, yeah, well, no, I couldn't code the game better than them. No way. But like, you know, sometimes people have ideas that are actually like really, really good, but sometimes people won't listen or respect them. It's like, oh, you're not a dev, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, well, actually, their idea is pretty good, you know?
Riot
might be tough to build, but
established in an old converted machine shop.
Not saying everyone knows their shit, but
humble beginnings, to say the least.
More of a case-by-case basis.
Merrill and Beck hired 5 permanent team members and some interns, including Steve Ginsu Feek, one of the original designers of Dota All-Stars. Feek, like the founders, was excited about building a MOBA game unconstrained from Blizzard. So with little experience in development, or teamwork for that matter, Riot Games worked for hours to create a project that they could show at the 2007 Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. Some of the team managed full-time studies on top of 40-hour work weeks, scrambling to put together something presentable for the conference. But something sat on the shoulders of Merrill and Beck. Building a new Dota wasn't their only focus. Studying business had given these founders a totally different perspective than the rest of the gaming industry. And Riot's 2 founders wanted to do something unheard of with their game. They wanted to give it away for free.
How can you make money with such a stupid idea?
And how can you not make money with such a brilliant idea?
See, that's kind of what I was getting at, you know? Because like, there's one of the first things you learn when you start taking like business classes and start learning about like that side of the world is there's a very easy, one of the first topics you learn about thing called groupthink. Groupthink is basically if you have a group of 20 people and you put them in a room together and they all have similar backgrounds and they start working on something, before you know it, they all basically start thinking the same way, and then things that should be easily catchable to someone who isn't part of that group will slip by unnoticed. Because everyone will be like, yep, I agree. Yep. Everyone's nodding along. Yep. That makes sense. And whether that's because they actually totally agree, or they don't want to start problems, or they don't want to be confrontational, or whatever it is, with this is, especially if they weren't like game devs, I'm sure there was already like this is how you do things. Like, you know, show up every day, 9 to 5. You know what I mean? Like, there's like standards or whatever. So sometimes having someone who's from the outside come in and look at something really shakes things up and gives you a new perspective.
America or Europe.
And that's one of the most important things you can do.
A game at full price,
seek
played
new
it,
perspectives,
and then bought another one. But in Asia, it was totally different. Most games like MapleStory were released completely free, making money through in-game purchases. This was partly to combat widespread piracy in Asia.
Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
But it also had some massive implications. Price determines demand for a product. Games with the high price tags have a natural barrier to entry, limiting your player base. But free-to-play games don't have this problem. They maximize demand by minimizing the price to 0. This was Merrill and Beck's idea. They looked at Dota as a live service instead of a modded product. They knew there were thousands of dedicated Dota fans, but to really move beyond a niche genre, which also had a large learning curve, their game needed to be free-to-play, planning on making money by monetizing in-game cosmetics,
helping
like
me
skins.
grow in
There's
hours,
just one problem.
sparking my enjoyment of ranked. Hopefully the
sounds
reset
awful.
of S9 helps me climb out of years living in low silver copium.
He's a 3 months.
Most of
Appreciate
North
it.
American publishers were scared of the free-to-play model, even though it was prominent in Asia. It just wasn't a proven business model in America yet, and publishers hated giving content away for free. So Riot building a new game with an unproven business model was just too risky.
Maybe also a bit of a hot take, but you know how people are talking about now, like games being $70, and like how that's really bad. And it's like, oh my god, I can't believe games are $70 now. And then talking about like GTA for being like $100 potentially or something like that. I'm actually super surprised that games stayed $60 for like 15 years or 10 years. And I think the price would have definitely went up back in 2017, 2018, if Fortnite hadn't hit. Because I remember back in 2017, 2018, people were saying that game prices were too low and companies weren't making enough money to be incentivized to make really, really good complete games. And then Fortnite hit, took over the whole industry, and they were just literally, they were money printing millions of billions of dollars. And the whole rest of the industry went, whoa, maybe free to play is the way to go. And now that we're in 2023 and post-COVID, and plus a lot of economies in the world are slowing down, people aren't spending as much money. Now we've hit a point where there's fatigue and gamers like don't want microtransactions anymore as much. They want finished product. They don't want beta games that are like half finished while they're trying to farm them for money the entire time. There's a lot of fatigue. Now we're kind of shifting back towards that whole full price model. And now the conversation has begun, and people already went to the $70, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes even higher because everything else is way more expensive nowadays than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago. Games isn't one of those. And so I think it would have happened way sooner if Fortnite hadn't been the sensation it was.
I hate it. I'm out.
Every publisher Riot went to was confused by the concept. They would ask, where's the single player? Why is it free to play? What console will it be on? None of them understood the vision or business model. The path forward was obscure and unknown, but the publisher's lack of faith may have been the biggest blessing for Riot, since Merrill and Beck wouldn't compromise on free-to-play.
Old 90s console games, like $70 or $80. In the 90s, I don't know. I was a baby.
Publish the game themselves.
I know the
But
2000s,
they
it
needed
was
money.
$60.
Lots of it. So they went to
And it
investors.
was much less with
Here they
GameStop
found
being
some
on
people
sale,
that
stuff
saw
like
their
that.
vision, individuals unshackled by the trends in the industry. For context, the game wasn't good at this point, nor did it have appealing assets or visuals.
I come in, they have nothing. They had a wireframe, kind of. They had a design, and they had a pitch. And they started to go through their pitch, and it was unbelievable.
But investors could see the business model and the gem Riot had created, now renamed to League of Legends Clash of the Fates.
And they understood not only the free-to-play concept,
And these games were
but they
50, 60,
understood
so
how to bring an
makes sense.
audience to the table to prime the pump of free-to-play.
So Riot secured millions in funding, not because their game was good, but because of the business model. The threat of closing their doors was finally gone, but their challenge was
Big.
far from over. Riot had a tough battle ahead, because another team was hard at work developing a competitor. S2 Games also saw the potential of MOBAs and were collaborating to create their very own standalone game called Heroes of Newerth. They had something Riot didn't: experience. Merrill and Beck knew they were in trouble. Heroes of Newerth had more polished art, animations, and VFX. Not to mention, Heroes of Newerth had some of the original people behind Dota, including the OG creator, IceFrog. Merrill and Beck were distraught.
Never
And
heard
it
of
got
this
even
game.
worse when both companies
Never heard of
offered a
it.
free pre-release around the same time. Players compared Riot's MOBA with S2, and it couldn't be more obvious which looked better. Heroes of Newerth dwarfed League of Legends, immediately pulling in double the numbers.
Well,
Your first
I
PC
like
game?
it.
Oh,
This
shit.
is brilliant, but I like this.
Nothing was going Riot's way, and League appeared to be down and out. But then something happened that gave Riot hope. S2 announced that Heroes of Newerth would be full price game, $30 on release. Half the player base left.
Full price game, $30 on release. That hits. That hits different.
Immediately. Many MOBA fans in Southeast Asia couldn't afford a full-priced game. Why keep playing a game if you couldn't buy it? So many moved to Riot's free MOBA. New fans around the world poured in, many from Asia, but also from the West, where players were eager to try this brand new game for free, a rare thing to see in the States. And when League of Legends officially launched as free-to-play, it exploded in popularity.
Let's eat.
In its first year, the game brought in over $1.3 million. The next year, $17 million. Then $85 million the following. The game was skyrocketing.
Damn.
Merrill and Beck only expected around 20,000 players at best, but they were getting millions. League was very similar to Dota, but it wasn't the game that made it blow up. It was the model, and we can see that with their competition. Although Heroes of Newerth lost half their player base, they still decided to release a full-price title, believing like the rest of the Western publishers that free-to-play wouldn't work. This blunder widened the gap even more between these two MOBAs, and after a year of lackluster sales, the studio behind Heroes of Newerth went free-to-play. But by this point, only
Too late.
500,000 players had purchased the game. while League of Legends was sitting at over 32 million new players and counting. Which game do you think players stuck with? But even when Heroes of Newerth went free to play, it didn't seem like they truly understood the business model. Many heroes didn't have purchasable skins, not to mention the game had very few cosmetics, and they didn't seem concerned with adding more. Heroes of Newerth copied free-to-play, but they didn't understand the intricacies behind it, which would bring them problems for the rest of the game's lifespan. This goes to show that Riot had something special, and they understood what others didn't. They understood the model, and the free-to-play model allowed them to dominate.
I wouldn't have known all this if they weren't
their game
business majors.
Worse in every single way.
A different
League
outlook
was riding high,
gaming.
but dark clouds were on the horizon.
Companies
Companies saw how well League of Legends was performing, and tons more MOBAs began popping up, all of them copying Riot's business model. Valve had bought the rights to Dota and released Dota 2 in 2012, and in 2010, Blizzard announced their own MOBA called Heroes of the Storm.
Heroes of the Storm!
There were plenty more, all adopting the same free-to-play model. But how
Pokemon
do you survive
unites.
against behemoths like Valve and Blizzard? The answer? Competition. Riot meticulously crafted the perfect competitive experience that kept players hooked. In mid-2010, Riot added Ranked, a competitive game mode where players could rise through the ranks between Bronze and Platinum. One of the first of its kind, especially in the MOBA genre. Riot had one goal: elevate the perception of the competitive experience.
Damn, Bronze to
While there was a
Plat
large
is
casual
ranked.
audience for League, Riot was trying to capture people who had heaps of time to invest in the game. The Sweats. These were the players who would play League for hours, climbing the ladder and purchasing in-game cosmetics.
Bro, you have thousands of games per season on this account. You don't go anywhere.
Riot had the most addictive gameplay loop, fueled by players who had that competitive urge. Thousands of hours were sunk into League, learning champions, item builds, and niche interactions, making the cost of switching to another MOBA difficult.
Off me, stream sniper!
As long as League continued to scratch that competitive itch,
So many T1
players
clips.
weren't going anywhere. So Riot kept players on the hook, consistently investing into a competitive side of the game. Every ranked season brought heroes and overhauls to game modes, using data to measure how players interacted with champions in the game.
And these are not just the old players trying out to see if they like the new one. These are players like myself.
Analyzing what was working and what didn't. They were eagerly listening to their
Wait, hang on. Whoa. This is the most replayed part of the video right here. Hold up. Holy shit. Is this a slide from their actual presentation? Niche. Not like niche and liked though. Niche and popular. Niche and middle kind of unpopular. Unpopular as I'm surprised this is down here. I'm surprised it's much more like, well, yeah, I guess that's fine actually now. I think, yeah, because, yeah, I guess that's fair actually. Yeah, I guess that's kind of fair. And then Tracer being in the middle, that's
what
funny.
didn't. They were eagerly listening to their audience, more so
30 days
than
and 13
any
months.
other
Flaps,
developer.
big
All of
slap.
these changes and new content kept these dedicated fans around.
Wait, so hang on. I gotta rewatch this section. So basically, they were using data to figure out what characters their players like, and making sure those characters get played more.
The new one. These are players like myself.
Analyzing what was working.
Hang on. What's that slide?
These are players like myself.
Analyzing
What is this? Is this League characters, I'm guessing? Okay, I don't know any of these characters, but so I'm guessing like this one up here, they recognize has depth and people like it, so they want to make sure it stays in meta. So Lee Sin is a popular character, and people like it, so they're like, wow, that's crazy. Imagine they did this in Overwatch.
what was working and what didn't. They were eagerly
Because like they show Genji in that.
listening to their audience.
Genji's super
more so
popular,
than
but
any other developer. All of these changes and new content kept these dedicated fans around. They weren't always on the money. But what mattered was the commitment, which far surpassed any other developer of a
These graphs are so
competitive game at
arbitrary
the
and
time.
stupid. But at the same time, though, it's like measuring popularity, and like if they're really balancing around popularity, that's a different outlook, to be honest with
Brings
you.
us back to
That's
Riot's
very different than what we're used to here.
S2 was struggling.
I mean, how do you
to keep
measure
Heroes of Newerth
popularity,
alive.
right? Like,
The
how
game
often
had a
do
much
people
steeper
play it?
learning curve, and very few
How
heroes
often
offered
do
an easy
people buy
experience
skins for
players.
it? How often
Whereas
they talk
in
about them
League,
online?
You have a collection of champions that offer an easy way to get into the game.
Reddit
like
cap?
Annie,
Yep.
Master Yi, Garen, many more. Heroes of Newerth was nearly impossible to get into, even when it was free to play. And S2 wasn't the best at making it easier. Instead of making the game more appealing, the studio released another MOBA in 2015 called Strife. So already their attention was spread thin. But what was worse was their dedication to maintaining a competitive environment. There was little done about toxic players, bugs, and broken heroes. Not to mention the UI and client remained untouched for years.
Oh no.
Riot, however, with League as their only game, consistently improved the experience. But one of the biggest differences was S2's lack of support for the competitive scene, something Riot Games was more than willing to provide: esports.
You know what the big difference is between Overwatch / Blizzard and Riot Games is for esport? Riot Games treats League of Legends / LCS for League. The reason they treat them so differently is because for League of Legends and for Valorant, they treat esports as a marketing tool. So when they spend millions of dollars on esports, it is categorized as marketing. Overwatch / Blizzard does not categorize their esport as marketing, and it's more of an entertainment platform. Very different outlooks on how they actually approach each one, and why Riot has been so much more successful with it.
And they kicked everything off with DreamHack World Championship 2011, when Fnatic would take home the winning prize of $50,000, an unbelievable amount for the time. This would later become Worlds, the biggest annual esports event in the world. Riot was one of the first to invest into the esports scene. Big events, high production values, and massive prize pools, giving players an example to look to, which raised that competitive ceiling even further.
Yep.
League of Legends esports.
If you actually want to see,
juggernaut.
if you're curious on prize pools, look up Dota 2 prize pools. They are, if you look at the top players of esports, period, Dota has like the top 25 of all time.
Every finals pulled in millions of viewers, thanks to the rise of digital platforms like Twitch and YouTube.
That's a name.
Seeing all of this as a Heroes of Newerth player, why would you stick around? And many didn't. League lent itself perfectly to the competitive scene, including streamers and content creators who would show off their incredible skill or something else entirely.
Oh, come on! Are you kidding?
You could find dedicated players for your favorite champions, and most of the time,
a ton of League.
The more popular
he's originally a League streamer, I think,
the more people wanted to play it with friends, stream it,
then
or
it's
watch
not
it.
exciting.
Players were sharing their favorite highlights, either dunking on their friends or showing off some incredible moments in the ranked ladder. League became its own marketing engine, but on the other side of the ring, their old competitor fizzled out. Sadly, Heroes of Newerth closed their doors on June 20th, 2022. But all this begs
started in
the
League,
question,
but he was like,
how is League of Legends still a
it was not that
juggernaut
big.
today?
It was Overwatch.
Every other
He might
competitive
have
game
totally
began doing what
normal
Riot is
streamer.
doing, pushing the pro scene, attracting sponsors, and hosting huge events.
He was
While
still a
the action of these
French-speaking
companies
streamer at
look
that point.
similar to League, Riot's goals
I
are
don't know,
totally
long time ago.
different. Today, League of Legends is still at the top of Twitch. And while other esports scenes like Overwatch are dying, Riot still has the biggest esport event.
Can we stop catching strays? Like, we've watched a couple videos today, and all of them we've caught strays in. Like, literally every single fucking video
in the world. So what is Riot doing differently? The answer? Lost leadership. This is where a company strategically loses money in one area in order to gain more profit in another. For example,
yeah, correction. It died, not dying. That shit flatlined. Beep.
Might sell milk at a loss, but make profit on all the other things you buy while you are there. It's common in retail, but can apply to all kinds of businesses, including
Cointrap
video
thinks
games.
the Prime
League
appreciated.
esports scene is not profitable. In fact, it never has been. These events they put on do something important. They elevate the competitiveness around League of Legends, which compels players to buy more cosmetics. That's why League esports continues to be huge, while other scenes like the Overwatch League are shutting down. Blizzard was trying to...
They said dying, and then they killed us right after. Like, it's like, oh, Overwatch League is dying, and then they're like, oh yeah, just kidding. By the way, you're actually dead.
League esports continues to be huge, while other scenes like the Overwatch League are shutting down. Blizzard was trying to grow profits in esports, while Riot was trying to grow profits in League of Legends.
Yeah.
It doesn't end there. Riot has applied this strategy all over the place,
Yep.
using lost leadership to generate buzz and raise brand awareness. Since 2014, Riot has worked with popular artists to create viral songs for Worlds each year. In 2014, they worked with Imagine Dragons. The next year, Nikki Taylor, then Zed, and many more. These songs garner hundreds of millions.
Do people even remember that Zed was actually a big Overwatch guy? Because it was such a short tenure.
Streams, and occasionally billions. Riot has applied these techniques to all aspects of League, from competitive events in Worlds to world building and characters with Arcane on Netflix. They even use these techniques to promote in-game characters who were falling behind in popularity. None of these viral techniques need to be profitable. Instead, they all help grow the brand.
Hey, let's make a K-pop group. So we took 4 champions, we put them in a K-pop group, we gave them new looks, new skins in our game, and a lot of players who don't typically play Akali would go and flock to this.
Further encouraging people
it's 2023, but we did that. We're just 4 years late, but hey, we're getting
try
there.
out the game and giving existing players all the more reason to keep playing. Additionally, these marketing ventures have brought in new generations of League players. People are exposed to all these viral songs or shows and are intrigued to try playing the game. People who never tried League of Legends, pick it up. These were crazy business moves, but they paid off. Riot is focused on keeping the League brand fresh and appealing. And the best part, the strategy isn't a fluke. Riot has done the same thing with their new IP Valorant. Viral songs, high-budget animations, and huge esports events. Valorant isn't as globally popular as League, yet, but it's providing the same brand perception, and it allows the game to stay fresh and appealing.
True.
And it's even providing
Brand perception so f***ing important, because even though Overwatch low-key has been kind of rebounding the last 6 months or so, ever since they finally came out and just said yeah, PvE's dead, we're done, we're done, it's over, it's over. And finally went back into PvP fully, and they've been kind of leaning into a lot of stuff. And then there's the Season 9 rank rework. They're actually really, really making a lot of good strides, and things are good. No, rebounding is absolutely the right word, and I there's no doubt about it. They have absolutely made really good decisions the last 5 months or so, but their brand perception is still so ass that people don't want to give them a shot, and they're not fixing it. Because the marketing people at Overwatch, no offense, are really f***ing bad. I don't want to be that guy, but I would just replace the whole marketing team. Listen, I liked being a part of it. Remember the John Cena thing? I was a part of it, but that was so bad. The way that was handled, and everyone was we were all had to be quiet and couldn't talk about it. The enigma, we were all oh, I wonder who it is, It was so weird. It wasn't very good. The K-pop thing was great. The game still has massive fundamental flaws that will never get fixed. Basically started with Ana and got worse with Brig. No, you're not wrong. So I had an interview with Alec Dawson a week and a half ago, and they said part of the Season 9 ranked rework is actually they're very much fundamentally looking at the way the game is played and making some massive changes, specifically to burst damage and burst healing. Obviously, we don't know what that is, but obviously the gameplay loop of Overwatch has been really bad for a little bit, just because how do you balance tank? How do you balance support, right? You either have OP as tanks and they actually get to have fun, or the tanks suck, nobody wants to play it, and supports run the game, right? So it's that's kind of awful, right? A big part of that has come from AoE healing, burst healing, really powerful abilities like anti-nade not being good in Overwatch 2 because there's less things to block it, whatnot. Overwatch of 7 years ago would never have acknowledged those facts, right? So I agree with you. You're totally right, actually. But I've never heard them come out and say, yeah, these things that we've implemented are actually a problem and we need to figure out how to make them better. Not saying they figured it out yet, but at least in the last 5-6 months, they kind of owned up to some mistakes. They finally started working back on the PvP stuff. BlizzCon, they acknowledged a lot of the community strifes and things to make it better. One big one being ranked being shit, and the gameplay loop being a little bit, awkward sometimes. But the problem is, though, at the end of the day, even though they've made a lot of really good changes, most people don't give like we don't even end up on their radar. You know what I mean? Essentially, need a complete and total from scratch overhaul to fix these fundamental issues that keep it behind other games. Yes and no. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by overhaul. Like going back, like if you're gonna say like going back to 6v6, like that's not the answer, right? Like we don't need more shields in Overwatch. Like I think like 5v5 did a lot of good things for the game, but like no, I'm with you though. Like a lot of the fundamental abilities are really, really weird, and I don't know how they would balance all of them. But the fact the thing is for me is like they've never in the past ever said, yeah, gameplay loop isn't very good right now, and we need to fix it. Not with just like balance tweaks, but with a big overhaul, right? And every time they've ever said that, it was before a big thing was coming out for an announcement that they were going to be selling us, aka Overwatch 2, right?
Provided some opportunities for cross-promotion, with arcane cosmetics being found in both League and Valorant. Riot Games are possibly the best marketers in the gaming industry. They know what keeps players coming back, and they know how to keep people talking about the game. All of this shows that it's not about the game itself. It's about the model and the brand you're building around the game.
That is really important.
This is why League of Legends will never die. Do you know what else will never die? Super Auto Pets. Don't let the title deceive you. This is one fun competitive game. In Super Auto Pets, you build...
Okay.
Go check it out and support the indie community. Thanks.
Nice plug. Good sponsor segment at the end. Pause champ. Potentially, unless it was an actual plug. You're not wrong. The gameplay loop for Overwatch is a little bit scuffed, right? Someone always is going to be at a disadvantage right now. I don't think it's impossible to fix. I think it's fixable. Problem is, though, is the whole Heroes fantasy thing. How much of that are they willing to change?